Yo, welcome back to the VoskCoin YouTube channel. I'm Vosk, this is Tails, and we're getting back to the basics of this channel, what really brought this channel up, and one of our favorite things to do, and that's going to be build a mining rig. This is going to be the ultimate GPU mining rig build guide of 2019, and we're building a mining rig with a mindset of it being operational in 2020 and 2021, and that's going to impact not only the parts we're using, but also the operating system. So this is going to be a Windows mining rig build. And if that's what you're looking for, well, you came to the right place. In today's video, I'm going to walk through every step. It's going to be a very in-depth video tutorial. I'm going to have timestamps in the video description below to take you to any portion you either want to go to or you want to go back and reference. I'm going to go in depth on every part I'm using. So if you've never built a computer, if you have never built a mining rig and you don't know anything, hopefully, if I do a decent job here, by the end of this video, you will not only know how, but you'll be able to mine cryptocurrency with a GPU in your house here. And you're gonna know what you're doing. Thanks to a super awesome furry donor out there, there's gonna be a little bit of Ethereum to be given away. And in order to enter that giveaway, all you have to do is drop your Ethereum address and a comment below on this video, as well as what GPU you would like to see a mining rig build on. For example, a 1660 Ti. That sounds like a good example, right? But let me know what GPUs you want to see built out. So let's go ahead and jump into the parts. I'll have links out to every part I use in this video, along with other top part recommendations in the video description below. And for this video, again, I'm creating a very versatile mining rig, something that's going to work today, something that's going to work next year. Some of these things you could scale back a little bit. For example, we're going to be using 8 gigs of RAM. Okay, so it's going to be 2 4GB sticks, 2400 megahertz DDR4 RAM, right? With most coins right now, you'd be fine with just one. Okay, so you only need this one, right? But there are some where you either get better performance or you just simply need 2 sticks. And sometimes when a hot new coin emerges that's very profitable to mine, if you're not set up and you don't have a versatile mining rig that is capable of mining it, you miss out while other people sometimes make very good profits. When you get in on a hot new coin that just launches, then that is where a lot of profitability is to be made. If you're mining a more stable coin, for example, something like Ethereum or some of the other GPU mineable coins, then you're gonna get, not as exciting, not as explosive income, but just a steadier, more passive income style return. And for the record, I'm a Doge dad, not your dad. This is not financial advice. As far as this RAM, we've used it in builds before. It's the Vengeance RAM, and it's good, and it's cheap. For today's build, we're going to be using all new parts. I have an upcoming rig build guide on using used parts and chasing a bang for buck with that, but today is all new parts, okay? And they are all going to have, obviously, warranties behind them. So first off, you're going to want to figure out what kind of CPU you want to run, and then it's going to impact what motherboard you choose. Obviously, you're going to need at least, I would recommend at least 6 PCIe ports right there on the board. If you don't have that, then you can't run the, arguably standard GPU mining rig size of 6 GPUs. You may have noticed that this is an AMD motherboard. It's the Asus Strix B450F, and I'm going to be running a Ryzen 2600X on it. Why? Because this processor comes with a cooler, which not all the Ryzen CPUs do. You have to make sure that they do. Some coins require you to have a decent CPU, better than the cheap Celeron style dual core CPUs that a lot of people use in their mining rigs, which we've used plenty of times here in the past in previous builds. So you may want a better CPU. Also, as far as new CPUs go, this thing is pretty cheap because the new Ryzen 3000 series is coming out, so the prices were slashed on it. So you get a pretty awesome CPU at a pretty good price of, depending where you're at, around 150 bucks or so. But it's not just for your GPUs. This can also CPU mine on its own. We talked about this premise before in our Tri-Miner build, and the whole purpose of that rig build was to create a GPU mining rig that you could do anything on, for example, video editing or game. We game on it all the time. And also CPU mine and hard drive mine. I'm not going to go extensively into that today. This is going to be focused on the GPU rig building portion, but this is a kind of GPU rig build that you could hard drive mine later on, add those on if you wanted to. You have this high quality CPU that is profitable to CPU mine with, and based off current calculations and projections, by having this mine on its own, I'll break even on it in about a year or so. So it's like a free CPU at that point. And personally, I'm just kind of sick of Intel, and I really want to see AMD make more and more progress in the CPU market, because Intel has kind of been ripping us off for years, in my opinion. But hey, now graphics cards. This is going to be the meat of your GPU build, and it is going to severely impact how much it costs. For today, we're doing a 2070 build. These may or may not be the right cards for you. Again, there's a lot of used cards out there that you can choose from. The issue is, they were probably mined with. How hard were they ran? And if they were mined and they had the fans run high speed, you may need to replace those fans on there. You have to make sure that warranty transfers, because a lot of the brands, they do not. Very big thing to look out for. We actually made a video talking about that a little while ago. The summary is that MSI, EVGA, Asus, as well as Gigabyte were some of the top brands to look for. Why are we using 2070? One, we've never benchmarked the 2070 on the channel. We've also never done a build with it, and we haven't seen any RTX builds out there really. So we're really excited to do this. If you're looking for maybe a more bang for buck GPU, I would recommend the 1660 or 1660 Ti. But here's the issue. They only have 6 gigabytes of GDR6, right? This is 8 gigabytes. 8 gigabytes is a lot more future-proof, and we're seeing a lot of coins move to be more memory heavy to make them ASIC resistant. A application-specific integrated circuit, ASIC miner, is this customized computer built just for mining a coin. If that comes out for a coin you're mining with the GPU, this guy is now obsolete. Fortunately, there are some projects out there that aim to continuously be GPU mineable, and it's called ASIC resistant. This is good news for GPU mining. Looking forward, the trend seems to be that we're going to need more memory heavy cards to maintain a higher level of ASIC resistance. Again, time will tell, but for right now, we're gonna have a lot of fun building this out, because this is still one of the best values for GPUs that has 8 gigabytes of memory new. Plus, here's another key factor. One day, you will likely sell your cards, right? What's gonna be easier to sell? An old card you bought used that definitely has no warranty, or when you're the first owner of a card, you probably took decent care of it, and you're gonna be selling an RTX card. Those are sought after, okay? They're newer. They were not part of the mining bull run of 2017, 2018, so the aftermarket is not flooded with them. These are easy to sell secondhand. Some of the other cards are not. Once you figure out what kind of graphics card you're using, you're gonna be looking at what power supply you need now. So a couple things to consider. One, running 2 power supplies. Ultimately, it's likely it will be cheaper, but there's more parts involved. You need to basically get a connector, or it's best to, so that the power supplies run in unison. There's a couple quirks you need to learn, and you've got to have 2 ports plugged in on the wall and so forth. This guy, 1600 watt EVGA titanium power supply. Why titanium? Because not only is it more efficient, so you burn less watts, okay? So that means your electric bill overall will be lower, and thus your bottom line with mining, you'll be earning more. And also, because it's more efficient, again, it uses less watts. So it's unlikely you say you'll trip a breaker. You can run this on 120 volt, your standard US electric, an electric you see really in a lot of homes around the world. And in addition to that, it's also able to be ran on 220 or 240 volt electric. So it's really applicable for both sides. Another key factor by choosing EVGA, and this isn't sponsored by EVGA or anything, these are just the facts here. The most power supplies come with about a 10-year warranty. 10 years is a long time. Think about what you were doing 10 years ago. Me, I was like barely able to drive. So with that, you got a really good warranty. And it has a ton of PCIe ports. The cards we're using today only require 1 8-pin on top, right? And the wattage we're gonna use means that's totally fine and safe. So one of these cords will power each card, and then we can use the PCIe connections below. We're going to split them and power the risers. A PCIe riser is how you're able to run 6 graphics cards when you're not, without having them all plugged into the board. So we have this guy. There's a lot of varied quality in PCIe risers. I'll link out to some of my top options that I've had good results with. You'll notice if you get the one that's $10 cheaper, you're probably gonna get 2 or 3 duds. That sucks, that's annoying, and it can really waste a lot of your time troubleshooting. With this just plugs into the board, and your graphics card will plug right into this riser. And once you do that, that's it. You just have to make sure there's power. So this has a PCIe port directly into it. So there's no splitters, there's no adapters. Sometimes those are going to be poorly made. They're all cheap China products. And what that means is not only that your mining rig may not work properly, but it's also a fire hazard. Mining was not worth it if your rig burns up, okay? Not only are you putting your investment at risk, which this isn't investment advice, but you're also putting yourself at risk, or your family, or your puppy. The list goes on. At the end of the day, spending maybe another $100 on a power supply to make sure you're not only safer, running better gear, and also more efficient, in my opinion, is probably worth it. And finally, I don't know if this seems like a lot of parts or not. If you're totally new to this may be a little daunting, but trust me, this is a very simplified build, in my opinion. The last piece we're going to need is going to be a hard drive. So this is the M.2. So this plugs right into the motherboard, which I will show you, which looks just like this. It's very simple, and it draws its power from the motherboard. So you eliminate one more cable. It makes for a cleaner build, easier to deal with, easier to deploy, and these are honestly also the best hard drives. And this is only about 50 bucks. You can buy a USB and run off there, but if you're doing something like Windows, you're gonna have a bad time. If you're doing a Linux build, then a USB could be okay, but you know, I got 500 gigabytes for like 50 bucks. I mean, it's up to you. This is definitely some hardware that's worth it. And again, this gives you that versatility. You wanna throw Apex Legends because that game's all the rage right now on your mining rig?
The hunt begins. Scanning the area.
Champion double kill.
Go ahead. You got the space for it. You got 500 gigs, man. This is pretty awkward trying to get in the same camera angle I've had for all the other gear, but this is a 3-tier shelf from Amazon, okay? There we have some beautiful B-roll to show you what it looks like from a better angle. This is less than $30, and this is going to function as the frame for this rig. It's going to be an open air build. This will allow these cards to breathe easy, right? And it's cheap. It's fully functional. It takes like no time to put together, especially if you have a rubber mallet, which I highly recommend. And with this design, we can have ample space for a motherboard, power supply, and hang these cards out to where they have good space to be nice and cool. We're looking to make our dollars go far in today's video, and in this kind of market, it's really not worth it to spend it on fancy rig frames and stuff. The other piece of hardware you'll need for this build is gonna be a power switch, which I'll show you more about that when we get there, but it just plugs right in and you click it and your rig is on or off. Because we're not using a traditional gaming, PC case, which comes with switches like this, you need some kind of a little adapter like this. Otherwise, you would have to short these by just touching a screwdriver to both of those prongs, which we never recommend. If you're planning, you can mine on Wi-Fi. And if you're planning to mine on Wi-Fi, you will need a Wi-Fi adapter because most motherboards don't come with those. So this is like 13 bucks on Amazon. It runs on 2.4 gigahertz. If you're wondering about a Windows key, technically you don't exactly need one. You'll just have that text in the bottom right. There are some sources where you can get cheaper keys online, and there's also buying a reputable key from places like Amazon. And you'll get a valid key, in the mail or digitally that you can be sure no one else also got. It'll be fine for mining purposes. You're also going to need a USB drive, either one if you're going to turn this into some kind of Linux build, but more likely you're going to need to install the Windows booter on this. And what that'll do is basically I'm going to plug this into this mining rig frame. If you fast forward, and here's some of it built. So I'm going to plug this in just like this, and then it's going to install Windows for me. I'll have a Windows tutorial on that portion later on in the video and on the timestamps. But if you're wondering, it's like 2 clicks, super easy, and you're done. A couple other pieces of miscellaneous gear you will need is going to be a monitor, okay? And also a mouse, a keyboard, pretty standard computer stuff, but depending on where you're at, you may or may not have this or have access to it. This stuff's pretty cheap, or you may even be able to hook your computer or your mining rig up to say like a smart TV. But I would really just go ahead and buy a cheap monitor. They have nice monitors, with 1 ms gaming speed for like 100 bucks you can get all day. You'll need this after the initial building step to go in and configure your mining rig. Enough talk, let's go ahead and get to building. So step 1, we're gonna need to take these off. These simply just hold the bottom bracket in place. So you're going to take a screwdriver, unscrew all 4 of them. After you unscrew the screws, you can just simply grab right here and lift out, and works on both sides. Imagine that. We do need to open this up for when we put the CPU in. You're just going to pull it out to the right, and you'll notice it moves into a little bit of an opening position right there. When this is up, obviously it's open, ready to receive your CPU. It's best to do this on a flat surface with some kind of foam underneath the motherboard to protect it, and this also keeps these in line because the bracket down there can come off. So that's in place. And on your CPU, there's gonna be this little gold arrow, and there'll be an indentation on your motherboard, and for that, it's right there. It is a little arrow. So what you need to do is line those up and be very gentle, because these prongs on the bottom of your CPU can become damaged, and if they're damaged, your CPU is no good. So I'm just gonna put it on there and gently move it to the side, and it'll fall right into place. This is absolutely not a part that you force into place. You push right down, and now your CPU is mounted. From there, we'll be installing the cooler. With the cooler, it already has screws pre-installed on it that we're going to tighten down. It has thermal paste pre-applied from the factory. Don't touch this. Don't mess with it. It's going to be fine for our purpose here. And there, we're just going to install it. You'll notice that this is a rectangle, not a square, so it does not work like this. You have to line it up this way is proper. To make this install a little cleaner, I'm going to pull this plastic bracket up, and I'm going to tuck this cable. And with that, I can install the CPU like this. And from here, I will take this and plug it into the CPU port right here. So always confirm that your cord is going to reach in whatever configuration you're doing before doing this. And from there, just be very careful and line it up with the holes, and then you can begin to tighten it down. You can see we got one screw slightly in, and it's leaning very heavily. So because of that, we're not going to tighten the one above it or the one here. We're going to tighten directly across. This is going to give us a more even install. Keep in mind, you will be pushing pretty hard, but that's why it's good to be on some foam. And it'll be pretty clear when you actually start to go into the mount, because the screw will actually begin to tighten. After that, you're just going to tighten all four sides. And from there, you will be able to tighten these screws down, and you'll reach a point where it just won't turn anymore. That's good. That means you have it fully installed. Make sure you reach that point on all four screws to ensure that you have an even pressure on the CPU, which means that that thermal paste is going to be properly distributed. This is a little bit more work than those basic Intel CPUs, but just looking at it and looking at the stock cooler they could provide, it's pretty obvious that you're getting a better piece of hardware. I don't think I even needed to tell you guys that. So next up, I'm going to put the M2 slot in. I really probably should have done this before I did the CPU, just give you a little bit more room there, but it's okay. It's no big deal. Be very careful. You don't want to force this stuff in, but it'll slide right in. From there, you will see that it lines up with this slot. You can do this ideally before, but I wanted to just show you that to demonstrate exactly what I'm talking about. So we need to install the mounting screw, which looks like this. And it's probably easy to just do it by hand. It'll just take a second. You have to get your finesse on. Once you get it going, it's pretty easy to tighten. This isn't something you need to ratchet down, like it's not your car's wheel and tire. You can just go ahead and finger tighten that. Now that is installed, so now is really where we should be installing the M2 drive. From there, make sure it's in and fully seated. Don't push too hard. Again, this is sensitive hardware. You need this screw. If you don't have one, I'll have a link out to it again in the video description below. You get these with a lot of random PC parts, but it doesn't, come standard with your motherboard or anything. This mount right there, that does come with most motherboards. If they have an M2 slot, they're going to come with that screw and mount. From there, it'll take a couple tries, but you can see I got it in It's, again, in this stuff you gotta ratchet, crazy hard down. It's nice, there and snug, and we are good to go. So you've got your CPU installed, but don't forget you still have to plug it in. Don't be fooled by this guy. It's like his evil twin. The correct CPU fan port is the 4-prong right above it. You'll see, goes in smoothly. Don't force this stuff, you'll break it. Next up, we're going to install the RAM. So this has this break in it, right? And that needs to line up with this plastic piece on the motherboard. We can see when we line it up like this, is that that's going to be the proper install orientation. This motherboard, only this side has like a ratcheting effect. This side does not break out. We're going to use slot number 1 and number 3. That's the proper install spots for this motherboard with 2 sticks of RAM. So we're going to put it in, push gently, and then just like that, you're in. Not a piece you want to, really anything on this motherboard you want to be firm, precise, but on the gentler side, I would say. And again, we're just going to do it again. And just like that, we've installed the RAM. If somebody charged you $100 to come to your house and do that, now you know how to install your own RAM. You got this, I'm telling you. Next up, we've got to install a power switch. We're not using some kind of standard, computer gaming case, which normally come with something like this. So we're just using this cheap little power switch because it's fully functional, and again, it's cheap. You can read what it says right here, and basically we're looking for PWR, which is power, and that's going to be the 3rd and 4th prongs in. When you install this, make sure the metal, okay, so this is going to be the back of it, is going to be towards the majority of the motherboard, or you could have the text facing you if you're looking at it. After that, you're just one click away. Not really, you gotta install a bunch of other stuff, but when you click it, it should hopefully turn on your mining rig. If you need to know how to set up a USB to be able to load Windows, well, I'm going to show you. Setting up a USB to install Windows for you on your mining rig if you already have another Windows computer is pretty easy. You're just going to go to this link, or click the link in the video description below, and from there you will download the tool now, and obviously you'll have plugged your USB that you're going to be putting this Windows installer onto. Make sure you have nothing else on there, because that's going to be the sole purpose of this USB drive. Once you do that, you'll have the media creation tool. From there you will click yes, and it will tell you it's getting a few things ready. Once it's done getting things ready, you would just click accept, and then it's going to get a few more things ready. And then finally, it'll be ready to do something again. You're obviously going to create installation media on a USB flash drive. For example, you're probably using English, you probably want Windows 10, and you probably want 64-bit architecture. From there, you will obviously select USB drive. Most people aren't really using the CD, DVDs anymore. From there, we're going to select that drive. So that was the USB that was plugged into our computer, only accessible option there, and from here it's going to download Windows 10 and then put it onto your USB drive. And once that's done, click, you're done, put it in the rig, and I'll be showing you how to go through the Windows setup later on in this video. Life's all about becoming more efficient, doing things better, doing things more effectively, getting more done in less amount of time, right? Yeah, I get it, that makes sense. And that's going to be the same way, the same logic we carry into setting up this power supply. So we know that we're going to need all of the VGA, aka PCI cables. So we're just going to plug them all in. That's going to be 3, 3, 3. Those are all VGA cables right here. We're going to plug them all in. We also know that the cards only need one 8-pin like this. So we can budget out 6 of these with just their 8-pin, which would leave us with the other cords, which they come in 2 different basically formats in this power supply. They have the cords with just the 8-pin, right? And then you have the cords that have an 8-pin, and then they also split off into another 6-pin. These are going to be what we use to power the risers, because they have a 6 and a 6, and the risers are powered by one 6-pin. So we have 3 cables that are like this, that are going to power 2 PCIE risers each. That equals 6. That's how many cards we have. Then we're going to have 6 cables that are either just an 8-pin, or they're a 8-pin plus 6, and I just went ahead and zip tied that down, cut it to allow us to have a nice clean build that's easy to manage the wires. Other than that, we're going to need just one CPU cable. It's labeled CPU. It's a 4+4, totaling an 8-pin, but this setup is different than the VGA PCIEs. You can't just interchange these cords. You're gonna have a bad time. Reverse polarity, my friends. And obviously, we're going to need a motherboard cable. It's this giant cable. You can't miss it. There's one. We're going to need one. And that's it. That's how simple this thing is. It's as simple as you make it. If you're doing some kind of other build where you need more of those PCIe cables and you are choosing to run some risers or something on a SATA cable, or maybe you have a SATA powered hard drive, then, well, you'll use a SATA cable, which plug into the SATA ports. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple stuff. Don't let this stuff get daunting or overwhelming. It's just a power supply, and you are an intelligent, complex, awesome human being. Oh, and don't forget to plug in the power cable to the back. Kind of important. All right, so we put together the basics of the motherboard. We have the CPU installed. We have the RAM installed. We have the hard drive installed. We have this guy, right? And we just put Windows on him. Now we're just going to need to plug this in, sync up the power supply, and start actually installing Windows. So we need to install one graphics card directly onto the board, and this is the best way to set up your mining rig. You need to ensure that everything is operating properly on your mining rig before you start adding the additional cards. Otherwise, you may just be running in circles troubleshooting when the issue is not what you think it is. So now we have one graphics card installed on the motherboard closest to the CPU. So that's gonna be this first full-size slot. We've got the M2 hard drive, we've got the USB installed in a 3.0 blue USB port. We have everything here ready to go. So we're going to need a CPU cable from our power supply, which is pretty clearly labeled. It's going to be an 8-pin, it's 4+4, and you're just going to install it in the only port that it's even possible to put it into on the motherboard. Next, you're going to grab the biggest cable off of your power supply. That's going to be your motherboard cable, and you're going to make sure that that little lip piece right here and this little clip are lined up. After that, you're just going to line them up on the motherboard and gently but firmly push it in. Make sure it clicks. Okay, I said that, but mine didn't click and it's fully installed. Don't push it until it clicks, as in it's starting to break. Then you're gonna grab one PCIe cable. After you do that, and again, these are all labeled. PCIe is also synonymous with VGA. From there, you're going to go ahead and install that on the graphics card. Okay, you can tell that's clearly installed as well. Now you're going to take your monitor cable. So this is an HDMI port. I'm going to install it on an HDMI port on the graphics card. Pretty much every graphics card has an HDMI port. That's going to be a safe bet. Then you're going to take your mouse and keyboard USB cables, and we're just going to go ahead and plug them into the motherboard. From there, you're just going to make sure that your power supply is in the on position. By doing that, it'll have the one icon. It's a very audible click when you switch them. You'll know that your power supply is on the on position because your motherboard, if properly connected, will begin to light up and display RGB. At that point, you'll be able to click the start button you installed, and you will see everything begin to power on. From here, we can begin to install Windows. It's going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to be doing English as well as English, and we are in the US, okay? And then we'll go install now, and it'll begin installing. It'll get our key from us here later on. Once Windows begins to install, you'll be prompted to input your key. You can also choose the option, I don't have a product key. We're going to be inputting a Windows key here today. Once you click next, you'll be given some terms. You don't really have a choice. You're probably going to accept them. From there, we're going to go with the custom install. We're going to choose our drive, almost 500 gigabytes. Pretty obvious that's going to be the M2 drive that we are looking for. We will go ahead and click next. We will get the classic Windows sign of loading. And then it'll begin installing. Installing is a pretty straightforward process. There's nothing you really need to do. It's just going to install right off the USB that you prepped earlier. And after all that, which for the record takes less than 10 minutes on a drive like that, you end up at this menu. I'm in the US. In the US. And I don't need a second keyboard layout. Now we need to name the mining rig. Every cool mining rig needs a cool name. So this is going to be Fenrir. We need a password. No, we don't. We're going to go ahead and decline this. We don't want any extra stuff like that, especially on a mining rig. Turn that off, 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 turn that off. Looking better. Looking better. Hey. And back to loading for a bit. And just like that, we're in. Let's go ahead and plug that Wi-Fi adapter in. Once you plug your Wi-Fi adapter in, you should be able to click your Wi-Fi icon down here and then access your network. And you can see that we have now successfully connected to the Wi-Fi. So let's go ahead and search VoskCoin. Let's see what comes up. We've got Bing. Some of the latest videos came up. Oh, the Reddit is the second result here. Twitter. Interesting. Interesting. I mean, how often do you search yourself? I mean, I'm not so conceited and narcissistic that I'm always staring at myself. I guess I am because I'm always editing video, but man, this looks terrible right now. Guess we need to download some drivers, huh? That's a good idea. Next step is we're gonna need drivers. So we have NVIDIA cards, so we can just go ahead and Google NVIDIA drivers. Go to some weird site. We're gonna go to NVIDIA, okay? If you need AMD drivers, obviously you'll just go ahead and search that. Once you're here, you can input your card and get a very specific driver download. However, we're going to be using GeForce Experience today. Some people like it, some people don't, but in my experience, it's been pretty easy and it's worked for me. If this is going to be your first rig build and you want to minimize all the things you have to do, by the way, the answer is always yes, then GeForce Experience would be the right decision. You don't have to worry about, you think you put the right driver in, but it's actually not, and so forth. GeForce Experience will analyze your computer and ensure you that you have the right driver installed. The annoying part with GeForce Experience is that you will need to create an account and log in, but it's not like it costs any money. You get it done in a couple minutes. Well, I couldn't remember my password, so this is what you're gonna get, NVIDIA. You're gonna get another account. Oh, look at them trying to take me out. Oh yeah, those are all storefronts. So I'm gonna go ahead and create an account. Hopefully I don't have to confirm this to use it. And are we in? Did it work? Good game, NVIDIA. Well played. Alright, went back, put a real email in, verified it, click and skip. And now we click over here to drivers. And we will go ahead, got it, and begin downloading the latest GeForce Game Ready driver. We're not going to be, at least initially, playing games on this mining rig, but this is going to be the optimal driver for us to mine with as well. You got to be careful you're not using outdated drivers with 20 series cards. Once this downloads, you guessed it, just go ahead and do Express, and it'll take care of the installation for you. You'll see it flicker a couple times, and then it'll be like, wow. It looks like RTX is finally on. Nice. Close. X. And now we've installed the basics we need here. We know that the computer is functioning properly. We have Windows installed. We got the driver. And now we can really get into the meat of this build. We're going to build this rig as if it's facing us. So because of that, and the USB ports and so forth being on the motherboard being on this side, we're going to put it on the right side, so the power supply will go on the left, because one, that's the only space left, but two, that's where these ports are going to go in, so that's a little bit less distance to travel for them. At the end, after we're sure everything's working, I'm going to go ahead and zip tie these things down, but until then, they're going to be sliding around a little bit just before we get, final decisions for where things are going to go decided. Next up, I'm going to start installing the PCIE Risers. We're going to offset them. So some are going to be towards the front and some are going to be towards the back to just allow a little bit more breathing room for this mining rig. This setup right here will give you a rough idea where the cards are going to go. We're going to basically have 3 cards up here in the front, 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to have 1, 2, 3 cards here more towards the back. Before we put any cards or anything in, I'm going to go ahead and run the power for these PCIE risers. So with all this in mind, the power cables I'm going to use for the risers, I put on the bottom portion of the power supply because they're going to have the shortest distance to go. The ones that are going onto the card, it's going to be on top and more likely to be a further distance. Just to give you an idea what this is going to look like, I put the card on here and I locked it in with this little locking mechanism. Very audible click when that actually is in the lock position. To get the maximum distance between these cards mounted on here without using any kind of extenders or adapters or whatever, I will have to reverse the orientation of the cards, which won't look as nice. But I'd like to just stay with the OEM cables to avoid any kind of, crappy China third-party fire risk there. Again, due to the cable's length, it's going to be a little awkward, but essentially this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to have this card mounted like this card mounted like this, and they're going to blow heat into each other, but I think we'll be okay. The best thing to do is to pull it through to the top and then work on the top of the mining rig where you're going to have a little bit more room, a little bit more clearance, especially if you have shorter zip ties. It'll be a little more difficult to work with. There's no reason to tighten your zip ties all the way yet, because we need to make sure everything fits and all the power cables are able to reach their destination. Hey, installing the cards on your open air rig frame is pretty simple. With a 3-tier shelf like we have here, you'll see that you'll just go ahead and hang them on any row you'd like. Really, the goal is just to spread them out. There's nothing too scientific about it other than that. And a lot of these graphics cards, depending on the actual model, you'll be able to slip a zip tie into the bottom portion. And by doing that, you'll be able to have 2 points of contact, which will make it much easier to straighten that card out. So let's go ahead, I'll move this card right here, and I can take this back zip tie and move it to the right while I push the front to the left. And just like that, I've straightened that card out. I haven't put a second zip tie on this, but by doing that, I should be able to get them to be pretty much straight up and down. This is going to be a better airflow situation than something like this, where there's going to be a pocket where it can trap that hot air. That's going to increase your temperature and thus decrease your hash rate and graphics card longevity. When you're installing these, you're going to want to use a bigger zip tie. A longer zip tie, as in bigger, will make it easier to maneuver, get through there, and get it in to secure and latch it. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Just take your time. Graphics cards are not very heavy, but when you have one hand like this and you're trying to get a zip tie, it can be pretty awkward to wield. And then you'll go ahead and have them installed. They'll clip right into the riser, and you push that little mechanism in to lock it in, and there you go. Once you go ahead and get your graphics cards mounted up top, obviously you're plugging in your riser and you're plugging in your PCIe or VGA power cable. This is not the prettiest way to mount your cards. It doesn't look super cool, and you may not be flexing on your Snapchat or your Instagram. But what this is a very cheap and a very safe way to create a mining rig. Okay, you have no splitters, no adapters, no nothing. If an EVGA cable fails, then you got some really bad luck, because that's high quality parts and that's very uncommon. It's not those cheap China splitter parts that have hundreds of documented cases where they catch on fire. It's a serious risk, and it's something I personally have been working to move away from. After that, pretty simple. Obviously, you're going to plug it into the wall, you're going to flip the on switch, and you're going to click the power cable that we installed, and your rig will power on. We've already tested it. We already know that the actual computer component, the motherboard, the CPU, just one graphics card, the power supply, that everything works. So now we are just testing that all 6 cards work. One of the main reasons I chose this motherboard is because you don't have to make any modifications to it. You don't have to go into the BIOS of it, nothing. You plug in 6 cards work. And if you've ever built a mining rig before or talked to someone who has, it's pretty obvious that's a nice luxury to have. Alright guys, so I went ahead and brought you over to the screen capture style. This is going to give me a little bit better audio quality, but more importantly, better video quality, because it's 2019. I can't keep recording my monitor with my camera like I did in the channel's inception, and actually even in part of this video, because it's quite a hassle to, get that feed going. When it comes to the mining software for your mining rig, there's a couple options. You have plug and play, pretty easy things like Cudo Miner, and then you can go case by case, installing specific miners and so forth. But for this, I'm going to start off with the easier plug and play model. Again, I've links out to download everything I use in this video, in the video description below, as well as timestamps to navigate around if you want to watch this portion or come back and refer to it. So Cudo Miner is cool. I'm not talking about it just because they have a referral system. You can see I've got 0 referrals here, but if you do want to use the code, that is always awesome and appreciated, because in this line of work for me, just focusing here on the channel and the mining and everything else, every little Satoshi absolutely adds up. Also, to be fully transparent, they are a sponsor of this build, but I wouldn't show you guys stuff that I wouldn't personally use or at least recommend myself. So where I really think that Cudo Miner is invaluable is if this is your first rig, don't complicate your life with individual miners and so forth. Grab a plug and play option like this. Sure, they have an associated fee with it, which to be clear is 5%, but it's not just for putting together miners you already have. They've built in a profit switching mechanism. So I don't have some kind of super cool long-term testing to say, hey, with this profit switching, I was able to make 10% more, so it absolutely paid for the fee and all that kind of stuff. I don't have that data for you guys, but what I do have is just the obvious notion. If it does work properly, then you should be making the most money that you can, and odds are that would be at least 5% more. What I really do like about this is that you can choose what coin you're mining. So you can do auto profit selection, right? So we can mine Grand, we can mine Ethereum, we can mine Ravencoin, and then you can choose a payout coin. I would really like to see them offering payout coins, and I believe this is stuff they're working on in at least every option they offer to mine as, just for the sake of GPU mining health. But I will say I'm really happy to see Ravencoin here as a payout, and that's what I'm personally choosing. Bitcoin, the fees are a little high, get a little old. Ethereum, not really my thing anymore. I really don't like the direction they take in the project, and they really couldn't care less about miners. If you watch some of my videos recapping their stuff, it's pretty obvious, not from what I say, but just from their actions, or if you go and listen to their dev meetings, they could not care less about GPU miners. Then there's Monero, obviously a great private project in my opinion. But so that's just me, my personal prerogative. I think that Ravencoin, even though they've increased pretty immensely in value, can still have probably the bigger upside there. So that's the payout I'm taking. Plus, it's just fun to see your coin goes up. It's not fun to have 0.0005 Bitcoin. I'd rather have 31 Ravencoin. Maybe that's just me though. But anyway, I'm ranting. So pretty simple. You click the link, you'll download it, hopefully use the referral link, you install it, and then we'll go from there. There's settings, right? So you can pause it when it's in use. So you say you use this for other things. When you are using the computer and thus your computer is not idle, so you walk away for 15-20 minutes, probably goes into idle mode, that it's going to stop mining. So you can do things with it. You can game with it, or you can whatever. You can also schedule use. Say you're always asleep at like 1 to 5 a.m. always. Well, you can schedule this to always mine then. You can also have it launch on startup if you want, but I really don't like bogging computers down with launching on startup. Launching on startup is good for a mining rig and probably not recommended if it's like your gaming computer. That's just me, my opinion. Depends on what kind of nice, sweet rig you're running. You can also have it start when you launch the computer, but not begin mining. That option is there as well. You can enable third-party mining. Obviously, enable third-party miners not mining. That's going to give you options to more profitable miners. You can also enable overclocking settings, this is pretty cool. I'll get to this in a second. And here we can see that we can mine with our CPU right out of the box with this thing, and it'll automatically convert our profits, which is cool. And then we have settings we can go into for each algorithm down here. For example, the TREX miner for Ravencoin, you need an additional piece, which that is, you need this package right here. So we go to download, I'll have this link out. If you have a Windows 64 operating system, then you're obviously going to need the 64 file. The TREX miner was not working for me on this rig until I downloaded this. So if you run into that problem, that's going to fix it for you. Teamviewer is good if you want a basic option to remote into your rig. There's a lot of other options out there, but for me personally, I'm team viewing into this right now for this video. It works for me. There's other options, but it's free for personal use, and definitely a good one to try out and get started when you are new to this. So you downloaded that file, so now you can use the TREX miner, which is the most profitable Ravencoin miner out there right now. You got the miner up, you got it installed. It'll initially automatically start benchmarking itself. You can overclock from within here. I'm not personally doing that today. I'm just using the good old MSI Afterburner. Again, all down the links in the video description below. This is, I'm using very basic overclock settings here, just an 80% power limit and plus 100 core, plus 100 memory. This is a safe overclock where your rig's not going to crash or anything like that. And it's still going to save you on the electric bill. You'll have a very marginal loss in hash rate across all the algorithms, and you'll get a bump in hash rate from the core and memory being overclocked. On the topic of overclocking, it's going to vary so greatly. You're going to have to adjust it differently depending on what type of graphics card, and even if it's a 1070 Ti, different cards will be overclocking differently. So you have to even adjust further within the same exact card type. And in addition to that, what you're mining will also change your overclock settings. So start with, about 100, reduce your power limit some, and then bump it up from there. There's a lot of resources online. We have more specific videos here on the channel to talk about, optimum settings for certain coins. And to be clear, I'm not mining Ravencoin because I'm getting paid out in Ravencoin or because I wanted to mine Ravencoin. It's mining that because it's choosing that as the most profitable option for me based off the benchmarking algorithm. Some things to note that I do like about Cudo Miner is you get your balance right here. You get your projected daily earnings, and you also get your projected monthly earnings. We come over here, we can go to our stats. We could break it down by hour. You can see obviously the rig wasn't on, turned it on, and then there we are. I guess it's just updating. We go to the minute by minute. You can see we're going up and down around the satoshis per minute, which is a small portion of Bitcoin if you do not know that. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You download it, you extract it, you turn it on, you make an account, and it benchmarks and begins mining for you. You can make your main selections right here. You can go auto, you can choose your payout coin, and that's that. When you want to actually get paid out, you need to go to, you can click transactions, or you just come over here and log into the dashboard, which transactions will take you there. I'm just in Teamviewer, so it's gonna pull up a window on that computer, and I'd rather be here on the main Mac screen, so you get full screen. And with that, it takes us here to our dashboard, which is cool to see our monthly, or really there's a ton of data here. I don't have it, here for you, but you can see I did a little bit of mining that day, just a little bit. And we're gonna have earnings day by day by day, and this will start to get really interesting. You have more and more rigs on here. You can break it out by month, and you can also break it out by year, which is pretty cool. In addition to this dashboard, you can come over here and click on your devices. You can see what is doing what. We can click on this, we can come in here and we can see the actual performance. We can see what it's mining and what it's earning through that mining, if it's earned on startup, if it has third-party miners enabled, and so forth. We can come in here and we can input custom configurations. We come down here to our account and we can see balances for coins. You'll also want to get familiar with transactions. You click over here, you can see your transactions, what you're earning, when and why. More importantly, you can withdraw funds. So say I want to get my Ravencoin out, right? Well, I can take my amount of Ravencoin, I can click my transaction speed priority, which I guess is just getting one option here, put in my address, and then I can withdraw the funds. They do have a minimum amount here, so it's 250 Raven, which is not ridiculous by any means, but it will mean that I cannot withdraw until I have 250 Raven. But it is a fully functioning platform. You can withdraw your funds, and that's it as far as using a plug-and-play software implementation like Cudo Miner. If you don't want to have a third-party mining service in there and you just want to use just straight mining software, mine the coin, send it straight to your wallet, and do everything yourself, basically cutting out this portion, that's absolutely an option too. So let's say I go ahead and close this out, which will not close. I need to come down here and quit the miner, right? And then I'm going to need to decide what coin I want to mine. So let's go ahead and take the TREX miner, which I am working on a new updated Ravencoin mining guide, but until then I'll just go ahead and give you the basics. So we need to find the miner. So for example here, I'm on Bitcoin Talk on the official thread. I can be taken to the GitHub for it. I'll go there and I can download whatever miner I need, whether I'm on Linux or Windows. And if you have a 20 series RTX graphics card like I'm showing in this video, you're probably going to want the 10 CUDA build. If you have an older graphics card, like on my 1070 Ti's, I run the CUDA 9.1. I think the 9.2 works as well. Basically, there's 3 options. I'll run through them until you find one that's working. That'd be the simple answer. Once you download this file and you extract it, it's going to vary on what you're mining and so forth. Obviously, we're going to need a Ravencoin address. I just come in here in my Ravencoin wallet and I grab my address. So from there, I've got my address, right? And I come in here and I can go to the config. You should really be using a program like Notepad++. It's great for this. I don't have it installed. I'm going to show you that you also don't need to install something extra. Try to keep this tutorial basic and as simple as possible for you guys. So I come in here and I just copy and pasted my address, right? And that's not the right key. I'm going to hit Control Save, and that has now been saved. So let's go ahead and start it just based off this miner more basic pool. Alright, just kidding, we're moving too fast. We need to come back into this config file, and from there we're going to need to either specify the GPUs that you want to use, or we can just remove this entire parameter. So after doing that, I can hit Control Save, and what that is doing is that's going to activate all of the GPUs on this rig instead of just GPU 0. So you can see GPU 0 to 5. 0 counts as your first GPU here. So we can see that we are mining, right? And if we come back up here, we can see that we've got RH9 and RQ, right? What was the Ravencoin address that I put in there? That would be the correct address. So that way we can confirm we're mining to our address, not the stock address that's put in here. And we have all 6 GPUs mining, and they're hashing away great. And so just like that, you're off to the races mining Ravencoin. But what about the other coin that everybody always talks about, wants to mine? But to be honest, the best window for mining that has really long since passed us. Right? Yeah, I know. I'm talking about Ethereum. So let's go ahead and jump into some Ethereum mining. With this, we'll just come over here and we will double click this and it'll download from this Mega NZ. This is Phoenix Miner. It is the best miner for mining Ethereum with a graphics card in 2019. There's a lot of talk about Ethereum moving to ProgPow, which is an alternative proof of work algorithm that is designed to equalize, right? Equalize, not obsolete ASIC miners. And anyway, so there's a lot of talk about them moving to that. They say they're going to do it, but they've been saying that for like almost a year now. I'm not holding my breath personally. Also, once ASICs are made for it, they're going to beat out graphics cards. So kind of the party will then be over there. Once you get this miner downloaded and extracted, like I just showed you when I was ranting to you, we can come in here, we can click edit. Once we come in here and click edit, we can change the pool, which, to be clear, pool is also known as pool 1. That's going to be your primary pool. So if you don't want to mine on the Europe or Stratum server for Ethermine, then you probably want to change that. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and grab this, because I'm here in the US. So I should mine on a server that's closest to me to have reduced latency there. So I'll go ahead and put that there. Okay, that's solved. And I'm not going to bother with it, but let's just imagine I go and I grab my Ethereum address. And I can grab it, I can copy and paste it right here and put my rig name. I'll just put Fenrir. And from there, I can hit Control S to save this. And that's your start.bat file. You go ahead and click this, and then it will start mining. If it wants access, just give it access. It's a mining rig. You shouldn't store anything private or that you'd be afraid of losing on a computer device like this. It's going to run through these basic settings. You're going to see it generate some DAG files, and pretty shortly after that we will begin mining. While we let that sync up, I'm going to show you guys what everyone refers to as the most popular mining profitability site for graphics cards. You've probably heard about it before if you've been doing some research, or you've at least seen the acronym WTM, right? And that's going to be what to mine. And the whole thing is what to mine. Like, what are you going to mine? What to mine for most profitability? So I went ahead and I put in 6 2070s right there. You can adjust your power cost. So I'm paying about 12 cents per kilowatt hour here in Virginia, USA. And we come down here, it's going to tell me what it thinks is the most profitable options to mine for me. Also, keep in mind, when we were looking at Cudo Miner earlier, the profitability does not take into account your power cost. which is okay. That's going to vary all the time anyway, but we can see here that Ravencoin and Zcoin are going to be the top options here. I bring this up for a couple of reasons, because first off, you can get a good baseline of, more or less what should your rig be hashing at. Sometimes you get an algorithm like X16R, which is what Ravencoin is on, and that has 16 different mining algorithms in it. So the hash rate is going to vary because the cards get a different hash rate on each algorithm. So I'll just give you a ballpark. But on something like ETH hash, which is the Ethereum mining algorithm, if it says that, you should be aiming to get that or beat it. Just keep that in mind. Even if we were hitting 221 megahash a second, it's still definitely not the most profitable thing to mine here. We're getting beat out pretty significantly by coins like Grin, as well as coins like Ravencoin and Zcoin. And you look at the past 7 days, these coins have consistently been more profitable to mine than Ethereum. Ethereum is used as the baseline in this profit calculator. And you don't want to live and die by mining profit calculators, but they are absolutely relatively accurate. They're always changing, so it's hard to get a good scope because, new mining farm could come online tomorrow, or one could go off, or a coin could go up in value, which makes all the mining you did previously, retroactively more profitable. But again, a ton of variables. That's crypto. That's mining for you. So we come down here and we can see this has had a little bit of time to sync up. And I also made sure I wasn't running the both miners at the same time. Don't do that. Just focus on mining one coin at a time for your graphics cards. But you can see with this, we're hitting 220, almost 226 megahash a second, right? And it says we should be hitting 221 with these settings. So we're beating that figure. And as far as the power cost, you can see that my entire mining rig, okay, not just the graphics cards on it, right, but the entire rig is pulling 914 watts. And by monitoring this, you'll be able to understand how much electric your rig is burning, so you can pay attention to your profitability and just make sure that it's making sense, or hopefully dollars. See what I did there? And that's how you set up the mining software to mine Ravencoin and Ethereum for your GPU mining rig here in 2019 with the most profitable, most effective miners for those coins respectively. Please keep in mind, with a program like Cudo Miner, it's easier to get set up to speed, pretty much automatic. And it's also a hosted platform, so you're paying that fee, but they're going to be loading in the new miners. It's something you can set it and essentially forget it. Whereas if you have these miners, you need to make sure something doesn't come out and blows yours away and you're missing out on that profitability. That reminds me, looking at this screen, not only does Cudo Miner mine with your GPUs, but also your CPU. So with all this in mind, one of the coins I like to CPU mine, I'm not trying to shill it or anything, I don't care at all if you guys mine it, is Veruscoin here. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this real quick. So I go to their website, I download their miner. Again, links are always in the video description below. I'll come here, I'll grab this, extract all, show the files when they're extracted. I'll drop it on the desktop because that just makes life easier. I'll close these out and I'll double click this. And I need to come down here. I was like half looking at that when I pushed it away, but it said Windows has found viruses. So that may very well mean that it's quarantined my miner. Let's go ahead and run it and see if it works. Obviously we're gonna run anyway. And it looks like they took my miner away. Let's go ahead and do it like this. We're gonna go ahead and extract all again. It's gonna find that virus again. We're gonna come here. Once we're in here, we can click this, we can go to actions, and we will click allow. It's gonna tell you, man, that is really stupid. And you're gonna say, that's okay. And let's see, so it should have been extracted to our downloads. Let's see if it's in there. No, it's not in there. So let's go ahead and extract it a third time and see if Windows will let us keep what we're trying to do. Went ahead and extracted that, dropped it on the desktop like we originally planned to. This stuff is good though, because we got hit with a problem and we go ahead and solve it. Once we get here, we're gonna need to go here and edit. From here, you'll be able to input your pool, your port, your Veruscoin address, your worker name, and how many CPU threads you want to use. But I'm gonna explain that more here in a second. There is a little bit of a quicker and easier way to get up to speed mining with your CPU. with the same way I am. I've said this 100 times, but I have a link down in the video description that can get you up to speed a little bit quicker. So this will take you to my Mega NZ, which be careful downloading things off Mega NZ if you don't know the person. So I could put anything on there, it could be malicious. I'm not gonna do that because that would kind of ruin the whole purpose of my channel and all that stuff. But the point is here, you go there, you'll download that, you'll go to your downloads folder, you will extract that file. We've got the CPU miner folder. What are we gonna do? You know we're dropping it on the desktop. So from there we can X this stuff out. We'll come over to the CPU. Once you do that, you can double click it, go to start, and you will go to edit. You're gonna run anyway. And from here, you'll see I already have this stuff set up. So all you're gonna need to do is change your Veruscoin address to your address, your worker name if you want, and specify how many threads, because this is going to vary based off your CPU. If you're using a Ryzen 2600X, you got 12 threads, so you can use up to 12 threads. But depending on what else you're running, or if you still want to use the computer, you're probably going to be better off using like 10 or 11 threads, especially if you're GPU mining with this. You want to leave a thread for the computer, which is basically like a core, and you want to leave it some room to be able to operate and not just crash. From there, I'm also going to edit my worker name. I'll just click Control Save, and just like that, I am hashing away. If you want to get a Veruscoin address, which you probably do if you want to mine this, again, right off their website, you can grab the wallet for Windows, Linux, God, or Mac. You grab that address from there, and then you'll put it in the miner, and off to the races. It's absolutely possible to overclock your CPU, but it's a little bit more in depth and there's not as much money to be made there. So I'm going to forego that in today's video, but if you want to talk about CPU mining and CPU overclocking, please join the VoskCoin Discord server. The talks are always going on there about everything crypto and everything mining. You can see out of the box with just 10 threads, I'm getting 14 mega hash a second. You can run the profit calculators yourself the day you're watching this video, but for me personally, historically, I make more money, USD, Satoshi value, more, quantifiable coins, any way you look at it, mining Verus than I do mining Monero or some of the other common CPU mineable options. If you're going to go outside the box and not use a plug-and-play mining solution like Cudo that has things like a Monero CPU mining built in, you might as well mine a coin that hopefully has a bigger upside. Just to demonstrate, you'll see I can come over here and I can start the Ethereum miner on this rig, and it'll absolutely start hashing away, won't crash it or anything, and we'll be mining with this CPU as well as GPUs simultaneously, which this is the long drawn out way to show you exactly what again a Cudo is doing. And then just to compare, we come over here, we double click this, and we double click this to get it to open, and you will see we come in here, we get this dashboard, and it's just pulling everything we just did all into one screen. One thing you will notice with this miner is you won't get pool stats. You'll get stats right here from within the miner, obviously, and you can see we're already up hashing away with the CPU and GPU. But if you're mining with, say, the standalone miners, then you can go to the pool side like this, and you can see, this is CPU mining. That's the 2700X we were just testing, and this is actually an FPGA miner, which it's a whole nother day, whole nother video if you're unfamiliar with those. But you can see with this that if I wanted to check the hash rate, if I wanted to check the results, if I wanted to check the earnings, I'd have to go out here and look at it on the pool. Not a big deal. We've done it in over 100 videos. But again, that's what this platform is doing, is pulling it all into one spot, making it a little bit more easier to manage, see, less maintenance, less things to do and care about, and just really easier to understand. Ooh, man, this is a lot. This is a very heavy, in-depth video, but I'm trying to break it down, keep it simple for you guys. I'm including links out to all the parts in the video description, all the downloads for everything you need. I'm hoping this is a one-stop shop, one-stop resource for you to get up to speed mining cryptocurrencies with not only GPUs but also some CPU action if you want to do that. So again, timestamps in the video to reflect back or refer back to anything that you need to, or if you want to order the parts, then just go to that section. It's all there for you guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm just doing the shooting part, and that's been pretty heavy, and I have to get into the editing. I do all my own editing here on the VoskCoin YouTube channel, and It's going to be a lot of work, but again, I hope you guys enjoy it. If you did, please make sure to hit the thumbs up on the video. Please subscribe to the VoskCoin YouTube channel, and I love when you guys leave me comments. I read them all, and well, hopefully you stick around, and I'll see you next time.